Oh, hello there. Yes, well, I do think I've got my camera and lighting sorted out. You never know, it might stick. Anyway, yes, today I thought, well, apart from mentioning the fact that it's cold, because it still bleeding is, and it's going to get worse, and I'm going up north, and it's going to be, nip, especially on the coast. Anyway, leaving that aside, today, yes, we'll look at Nick Timothy, who writted a piece in the Telegraph, which I thought was just way beyond laughable. But let's have a look, shall we? Yes, we must shake off the progressive habit of national self-flagellation. This country is not responsible for all the ills of the world, and people should stop saying it is. Yes, people. We'll come on to people. Anyway, we are used to national exceptionalism, the idea that a country's special characters makes it different, more likely to succeed and prosper. In Britain, this was a widely held assumption more than a century ago, when we were at the peak of our imperial power. For, unsurprisingly, exceptionalism is linked to the political might and civilizational confidence. These days it's a common belief in America and increasingly China. Yeah, and still in the UK, mate. We'll come on to that. But a new form of exceptionalism has taken root in Britain, one based on a completely different set of attitudes and values. This progressive exceptionalism does not hold that our national character means we will succeed, but that we are uniquely sinful. It does not rest upon political might, but on self-doubt and defeatism. Oh, God, yes, that'd be awful, wouldn't it? Defeatism. Can't have that. Churchill would be upset, wouldn't he? Yes. Anyway, it's one of these, not so much a straw man as a completely non-existent man style arguments, because none of what he says is true. And he manages just to mention two people. He manages to mention Keir Starmer, not in relation to self-flagellation, but blasphemy laws for some reason or other. And he manages to mention Emile Macron, who isn't British and isn't progressive. Or as indeed Keir Starmer isn't progressive. So this ends up an argument about people somebody somewhere, who is running Britain down, according to Nick Timothy. But in what way are they running Britain down? Well, he uses the example of roads, etc., being changed their names to make them less colonial. And that got me thinking about what happened in the past. Because I'm like that, think about that, the exceptionalism of the past, come back to that particular notion. But it got me thinking about Only Fools and Horses, which came out in the very early 1980s. You might think that it was basically a kind of satire of the notion of certain Thatcherite values, whereby you could just make money out of everything if you were smart enough. Anyway, you may recall that the Trotter brothers lived in Nelson Mandela Block, because it was hilarious back in the early 80s that, councils in London would have been that progressive that they would have renamed things. That was 40 odd years ago. It's not a new thing at all, is it? And it's just one of those convenient things. We do this all the time. We rename things because, even though I don't particularly care about it, the national media, like Nick Timothy, MP, like to pretend that certain people, like me, even though it's not me, get very upset with the idea that we have Black Boy Lane. I don't really care. Call it Black Boy Lane if you want. You can call it White Boy Lane. I don't really care. Nobody realistically does. The only people that get upset about this in their own heads are right-wingers. Because, of course, this idea of national exceptionalism has not gone away, Nick Timothy. No, because all the people that do earnestly believe in exceptionalism are the right-wingers, aren't they? Think about all that lot of GB News about how wonderful Britain is. Think about all those times you've seen David Starkey. Isn't it brilliant about him being interviewed about how exceptional we are? We have democracy because it's exceptional here. Yes, it's very exceptional. Think about all that lot of the New Culture Forum about the exceptionalism of British culture, of English culture, of the Western culture. So much better than all those brown people. It's exceptional, yes. And of course, Nick Timothy isn't really a person who should be writing this kind of tosh, because we do also remember historically Nick Timothy, a man who was the mastermind between, Theresa May having to make a deal with the Ulster Unionists and all the problems that caused in and around Brexit. That wasn't very exceptional at all, was it? And of course then he got booted out because his own MPs demanded that he went. But he's back now with that unsavoury bit of his past conveniently forgotten. A bit like he has ever conveniently forgotten lots of things about Britain's past, like the Trotter brothers and, us renaming things. Been going on all the time, mate. Still, not that exceptional at all. A bit like Nick Timothy, one might say. Anyway, do have a gorgeous and lovely and gorgeous close to New Year day, if you can.